I arrived at Pinnacle Marketing's annual Excellence Awards ceremony, wearing my best navy blazer, expecting to attend as the lead strategist who secured their biggest client win this year. Security guard Marcus blocked my entrance while pointing to an iPad. "Why would we waste a seat on you?" snapped HR Director Patricia Wells, her voice dripping with disdain. I looked around the crowded ballroom. Everyone had a seat, even Tommy Rodriguez, the junior analyst who took credit for my groundbreaking campaign strategy. My heart pounded as I realized this public humiliation was planned. Standing there in shock, memories flooded back to 18 months ago when I first walked through Pinnacle Marketing's glass doors. I had been so excited to join as senior campaign strategist, bringing 5 years of innovative digital marketing expertise from my previous agency work in Chicago. The starting salary was generous, the office overlooked downtown Seattle's skyline, and the leadership team promised creative freedom that smaller firms couldn't offer. My breakthrough came just 8 months into the job with what became known as the Community Connect campaign. Megacorp Industries, a Fortune 500 manufacturing giant, was struggling to modernize their brand image after decades of traditional advertising approaches had failed to reach younger consumers. Their previous marketing efforts felt corporate and disconnected, leaving them vulnerable to more agile competitors. I spent weeks researching their target demographic, conducting focus groups, and analyzing social media engagement patterns. The solution I developed was revolutionary for their industry-authentic community storytelling that highlighted real employees and customers rather than polished corporate messaging. Instead of glossy television commercials featuring actors, we created genuine narratives about factory workers who took pride in their craftsmanship and small business owners whose success depended on Megacorp's reliable products. The campaign launched with a series of mini-documentaries showcasing these authentic stories, supported by interactive social media campaigns where customers could share their own experiences. Within 3 months, Megacorp's social media engagement increased by 400%. Their brand sentiment scores reached all-time highs, and most importantly, they saw a 12% increase in sales among the coveted 25 to 40 demographic. The success was unprecedented. Megacorp's executives were so impressed they expanded their annual marketing budget from $800,000 to $2.8 million, making them Pinnacle's largest client by far. Industry publications featured case studies of the campaign, and competitor agencies started copying elements of our community-focused approach. But somewhere during those successful months, the workplace dynamics began shifting in ways I initially dismissed as normal corporate politics. Patricia Wells, the HR director, was a calculating woman in her mid-40s with perfectly styled auburn hair who never went anywhere without clutching her leather portfolio like a shield. She began scheduling informal check-ins with me, asking probing questions about my long-term career goals and whether I felt fully supported by the team. Tommy Rodriguez presented a different kind of challenge. At 26, he possessed the smooth-talking charm that made him instantly likable to management, especially CEO Bradley Thornton. Tommy had joined the company just 3 months before my campaign launched, supposedly to support data analysis, but he quickly positioned himself as much more than a junior analyst. Bradley Thornton ran Pinnacle like his personal kingdom. At 52, his silver hair and expensive suits commanded respect, but his management style favored personal relationships over documented performance. He preferred verbal updates over written reports and made major decisions based on whoever had his ear during golf games or lunch meetings. The poisoning of my professional relationships happened gradually. Tommy began attending client meetings where my presence was suddenly deemed unnecessary, despite the campaign being my creation. During team presentations, he would stand beside my PowerPoint slides and field questions as if the strategies were collaborative efforts where he played an equal role. The most insidious part was how he repackaged my ideas. In one particularly painful meeting, Tommy presented what he called his customer authenticity framework to the board of directors. Every element was lifted directly from my Community Connect strategy documents, but he positioned the concepts as his own innovative thinking. When board members praised his creativity, he graciously accepted credit while throwing in casual mentions of how the team had helped refine his vision. My meeting invitations started getting lost in digital transit. Colleagues who previously sought my input on campaigns began avoiding eye contact in hallways. The coffee machine conversations that once included me naturally shifted to whispered discussions that stopped when I approached. Sarah Chen from accounting, whom I considered a friend, began asking strange questions during our lunch breaks. She would casually inquire about my weekend plans, whether I was happy at Pinnacle, and if I ever missed working at smaller agencies. At the time, I thought she was being supportive, but her curiosity felt oddly pointed. The warning signs escalated when I noticed Tommy having frequent private conversations with Bradley. Their discussions always ended when I entered the room, accompanied by knowing looks that made my stomach turn. Tommy would emerge from these meetings with increased confidence, speaking about upcoming changes and new opportunities in vague terms that seemed directed at me. My original email proposals for the Megacorp campaign remained buried in my sent folder, time-stamped proof of my authorship that I had no reason to think I would need. Client correspondence praising my specific contributions sat unread in archived threads. The documentation of my work existed, but in a company culture that valued verbal communication and personal relationships over paper trails, my evidence felt invisible. The slow erosion of my professional standing reached a crescendo during a conference call I accidentally overheard while working late one evening. Tommy's voice carried through the thin office walls as he spoke to someone I couldn't identify. "Jackie's planning to quit anyway and start a competing agency," he said confidently. "She's been meeting with headhunters and talking about stealing our clients. Patricia thinks we need to protect the company's intellectual property before she walks out with everything." My blood turned to ice. Every word was a complete fabrication, but spoken with such conviction that anyone listening would believe it as fact. I had never met with headhunters, never considered starting my own agency, and certainly never discussed client theft. But Tommy's lie explained everything: the cold treatment, the excluded meetings, the systematic isolation. They weren't just trying to take credit for my work. They were preemptively destroying my reputation to justify whatever they planned to do next. The next morning, I arrived at the office with new clarity about what I was facing. This was not workplace drama or personality conflicts. It was a coordinated attack on my career that required documentation and strategy to combat. I began treating my situation like a research project, methodically gathering evidence while maintaining my normal routine to avoid suspicion. My first priority was securing proof of my authorship for the Megacorp campaign. I carefully copied original email proposals from my sent folder, saved drafts that showed the evolution of my strategic thinking, and client correspondence that specifically mentioned my name and contributions. The evidence was overwhelming. Every innovative element of the Community Connect campaign could be traced back to my initial concepts and detailed planning. While building my evidence file, Patricia Wells called me into her office for what she described as a routine performance review. Her corner office was decorated with motivational posters and family photos that created a false sense of warmth, but her manner was anything but maternal. "Jackie, I want to address some concerns that have come to my attention." Patricia began consulting notes in her leather portfolio. "We've received feedback from clients about your communication style. Some find you overly assertive and difficult to work with. My heart rate spiked. Which clients specifically I'd like to address any concerns directly? Patricia's smile was practiced and cold. I can't share specific names due to confidentiality, but the pattern is troubling. Several people have mentioned that you might not be the right cultural fit for our family-oriented company environment. The accusations were completely fabricated. My client relationships were strong, evidenced by numerous emails praising my responsiveness and creativity. Megacorp's executives specifically requested my involvement in their campaigns and had never expressed anything but satisfaction with my work. But Patricia presented these fictional complaints as documented facts, creating a paper trail of performance issues that existed only in her imagination. I'm recommending increased supervision of your client interactions, Patricia continued. We want to help you succeed here, but you need to understand that collaboration and team harmony are essential to our success. The meeting was a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. Patricia positioned her attack as concern for my professional development, while systematically undermining my confidence and creating justification for future disciplinary actions. She never provided specific examples of problematic behavior because none existed, but her implications were clear. My job was in jeopardy unless I accepted a diminished role. The sabotage escalated quickly after that meeting. My computer access was mysteriously limited, preventing me from updating certain client files or accessing campaign research databases. When I contacted IT support, they claimed the restrictions were part of a security upgrade that affected several employees, but none of my colleagues mentioned similar limitations. I was excluded from client calls that I had previously led, with Patricia explaining that streamlining communication would be more efficient. My parking spot, which came with my senior position, was reassigned to accommodate visitor needs, forcing me to park 3 blocks away and walk through Seattle's October rain every morning. Even my office supplies began disappearing. Staplers, high-quality pens, and presentation materials that I had purchased with company funds vanished overnight. When I requested replacements, the supply manager claimed budget constraints required more careful resource allocation. Meanwhile, Tommy's desk acquired new equipment and supplies that seemed to appear magically. The betrayal that hurt most came from Sarah Chen, whom I had trusted with personal concerns about the hostile work environment. During a particularly difficult week, Sarah approached me with an expression of guilt that immediately put me on guard. "Jackie, I need to tell you something," she said quietly, glancing around the break room to ensure we were alone. "Patricia asked me to monitor your email usage and report any suspicious activity." My coffee cup trembled in my hands. "What kind of suspicious activity?" "Job searching, personal communication during work hours, anything that might suggest you're planning to leave or take clients with you," Sarah admitted. I didn't want to do it, but she said it was necessary to protect the company from potential corporate espionage. Corporate espionage. The accusation was so absurd, it would have been laughable under different circumstances. I was supposedly planning to steal client information and trade secrets from a company where I had created their most successful campaign. The irony was painful. They were stealing from me while accusing me of theft. Sarah's revelation confirmed that my paranoia was justified. Every email I sent was being scrutinized for evidence of disloyalty. Every conversation was potential ammunition for their case against me. The psychological pressure was designed to make me quit voluntarily, saving them the legal complications of wrongful termination. The final insult came during a board presentation where Tommy unveiled what he called his expansion framework for the Megacorp campaign. As I watched from the back of the conference room, he presented slides that were word for word plagiarized from my confidential strategy document. This was not inspired by my work or built upon my concepts. It was direct theft of intellectual property that I had spent months developing. Tommy spoke with practiced confidence about his vision for expanding Community Connect into other industries using my proprietary research and innovative approaches, as if they were his original creations. Board members nodded approvingly, asking detailed questions about implementation timelines and budget requirements. Every answer came from my stolen work. When Bradley Thornton praised Tommy's exceptional strategic thinking and innovative approach to client relationship building, I felt sick to my stomach. My career accomplishments were being transferred to someone else in real time, with company leadership completely unaware of the theft occurring in front of them. But the most devastating realization was that this was not random workplace politics or personality conflicts. Tommy and Patricia had discovered that competing agencies had been trying to recruit me. Several headhunters had reached out through LinkedIn, and while I had politely declined their overtures, the mere contact was enough to trigger their preemptive strike. They could not risk losing me to a competitor while allowing me to retain knowledge of Pinnacle's client strategies and proprietary approaches. Their solution was elegant in its cruelty: steal my work, destroy my reputation, and eliminate me from the industry entirely. By the time their campaign was complete, I would be unemployable in Seattle's marketing community, while Tommy would be positioned as the creative genius behind our company's biggest success. The Excellence Awards ceremony was Pinnacle Marketing's most prestigious annual event, designed to celebrate outstanding achievements and strengthen relationships with key clients and industry partners. The ballroom at the Grand Hyatt Seattle was decorated with the company's signature blue and silver color scheme, round tables draped in elegant linens, and a stage featuring a professional sound system for presentations and speeches. I learned about the ceremony's specific plans through office chatter and overheard conversations rather than official communication. The Megacorp campaign would be the evening's centerpiece, honored with the Campaign Innovator of the Year award. Tommy Rodriguez was scheduled to receive recognition as the creative mastermind behind our company's biggest client success. The bitter irony was inescapable. My campaign would be celebrated while I was excluded from attending, my achievements transferred to someone who had contributed nothing but strategic theft and manipulation. The award ceremony represented the culmination of their systematic campaign to erase my professional identity. When I finally gathered courage to approach Patricia about attending the ceremony, her response was swift and decisive. I found her in her office reviewing seating charts and award presentation notes, her leather portfolio spread across her desk like battle plans. "Patricia, I wanted to confirm my attendance at tomorrow evening's award ceremony," I said, trying to maintain a professional tone despite my racing heart. She looked up with an expression of genuine surprise, as if my request was completely unexpected. "Jackie, your attendance wouldn't be appropriate given the current circumstances." "What circumstances specifically?" "I led the Megacorp campaign that's being honored." Patricia's smile was patronizing and cruel. "Your recent performance issues make your presence potentially disruptive to team morale. The ceremony is about celebrating success and moving forward positively. We can't risk any negativity affecting our relationships with clients and vendors." The conversation was brief but devastating in its implications. Patricia presented my exclusion as a reasonable business decision based on fabricated performance concerns. She positioned my potential attendance as a threat to company relationships, transforming me from award-worthy strategist to liability in a few carefully chosen words. The day before the ceremony, I witnessed the final rehearsal through the conference room's glass walls. Tommy stood at a makeshift podium, practicing his acceptance speech, while company leadership provided feedback and encouragement. His prepared remarks thanked his team for their collaborative efforts and support, mentioning dedicated colleagues who had helped refine his vision for authentic customer engagement. Bradley Thornton beamed with pride as Tommy discussed his breakthrough insights into community-based marketing strategies. Patricia Wells took notes on presentation timing and suggested minor adjustments to ensure maximum impact. The entire scene felt surreal, my stolen work being celebrated while I watched from outside like a ghost haunting my former life. Tommy's speech was polished and confident, filled with marketing jargon and strategic terminology lifted directly from my original proposals. He spoke about the challenges of modernizing traditional brand messaging, the importance of authentic customer connections, and the innovative approaches that had driven Megacorp's unprecedented success. Every word was true, but every concept was mine. The actual ceremony night was even worse than I had imagined. I arrived wearing my best navy blazer and pearl necklace professional attire, appropriate for industry recognition events. My plan was simple: attend the ceremony as a senior employee who had contributed to the company's success, maintain my dignity despite their attempts to exclude me, and gather evidence of their public misrepresentation of my work. The Grand Hyatt's ballroom was packed with Seattle's marketing elite clients from major corporations and vendor partners who represented millions in annual business relationships. Everyone who mattered in our industry was present, making the ceremony a crucial networking opportunity and professional showcase. Security guard Marcus, a large man in his 50s whom I had never seen before, stood at the entrance checking names against his iPad registration list. When I approached, he seemed genuinely confused by my presence, scrolling through digital records that apparently did not include my name. "I'm Jackie Morrison, Senior Campaign Strategist with Pinnacle Marketing," I explained, showing my company identification badge. Marcus consulted his device again, then spoke into a small radio to summon additional assistance. Within moments, Patricia Wells appeared at the entrance, her expression shifting from surprise to barely controlled anger when she saw me. "Why would we waste a seat on you?" Patricia snapped, her voice carrying enough volume to attract attention from nearby attendees. "You're not authorized to be here." The public rejection was calculated for maximum humiliation. Patricia's words were chosen to suggest that I was an uninvited intruder rather than a legitimate employee, while her tone implied that my presence was both inappropriate and unwelcome. Several industry colleagues overheard the exchange, their confused expressions indicating they did not understand why a senior strategist would be banned from her own company's ceremony. I looked around the crowded ballroom, taking in the sea of familiar faces seated at elegantly appointed tables. Everyone had a place: junior associates, administrative assistants, even summer interns were included in the celebration. Tommy Rodriguez sat at a prominent table near the stage, wearing a new charcoal suit and confident smile that made my stomach turn. The guest list included Megacorp's senior executives Rebecca and James Martinez, whom I had worked with closely during campaign development. They were seated at the head table, positioned to witness Tommy's acceptance speech firsthand. Their presence made the theft even more personal. They would watch my accomplishments attributed to someone else without knowing the truth. "There must be some mistake," I said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "I led the Megacorp campaign that's being honored tonight." Patricia's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "You're confused about your role in that project. Security will escort you out if you don't leave immediately." The threat was delivered with professional courtesy, but unmistakable menace. Patricia was willing to have me physically removed from a company event, rather than allow my presence to complicate their narrative. The scene was designed to publicly establish that I was not welcome, not valued, and not deserving of recognition for work I had created. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Rebecca Martinez looking puzzled by the commotion at the entrance. She recognized me from our numerous client meetings and campaign planning sessions, her expression suggesting confusion about why I was being excluded from an event celebrating work we had developed together. The walk back to my car was the longest 3 blocks of my professional life. Seattle's October evening was cold and drizzly, matching my mood as I processed the complete destruction of my standing within the company and industry. They had successfully erased my professional identity in front of everyone who mattered, positioning me as a problematic employee who had been appropriately excluded from celebrating success I had created. But the worst was yet to come. During Tommy's acceptance speech, which I later watched online through the company's social media coverage, he claimed that I had been merely an administrative assistant who helped with data entry for his campaign. The lie was breathtaking in its cruelty and strategic effectiveness. It completely erased my professional qualifications while explaining my exclusion from the ceremony in terms that protected company leadership from questions about my absence. My 5 years of strategic marketing experience, my innovative campaign development, and my direct relationship with Megacorp's executives were reduced to data entry assistants for someone else's vision. The characterization was designed to humiliate me while providing legal protection for their theft of my intellectual property. If I was just an administrative assistant, I could not claim ownership of strategic work or campaign innovations. Returning to the office after my public humiliation felt like entering a crime scene where I was both victim and detective. The building was mostly empty on Friday evening, with only security guards and cleaning crew working their overnight shifts. My keycard still functioned, suggesting that my termination had not yet been processed, but I knew that privilege would disappear soon. I settled at my desk with grim determination, planning to organize my evidence and prepare for whatever legal or professional challenges lay ahead. My computer was still functional, though I suspected my access would be terminated by Monday morning. The weekend gave me a narrow window to document the full scope of their conspiracy before they could destroy or alter digital evidence. While reviewing email folders and organizing campaign documentation, my computer chimed with a new message notification. The sender was listed as Patricia Wells, but the timestamp indicated the email had been sent several hours earlier, suggesting a delayed delivery or forwarding error. My heart stopped when I realized what I was seeing: a forwarded email chain that Patricia's assistant had accidentally sent to my address instead of another recipient. The subject line read, "R.E. Jackie situation, final steps," and the message thread contained the entire blueprint of their conspiracy against me. The emails were dated over the previous 3 months, starting shortly after Tommy had joined the company and continuing through the present week. Reading them felt like discovering a detailed confession written by the perpetrators of an elaborate crime. Patricia's initial message to Bradley Thornton was particularly damning. "We need to neutralize the Jackie problem before she becomes a bigger threat. Tommy has confirmed she's been meeting with headhunters, and we can't risk her taking our client strategies to competitors. I recommend systematic documentation of performance issues to justify termination with cause." Tommy's response revealed the depth of his involvement. "I can position myself as the Megacorp campaign leader while creating doubt about Jackie's actual contributions. Give me 3 months to establish myself with Bradley and the clients, then we can move forward with removal. She won't be able to prove authorship if we control the narrative." Subsequent emails detailed their strategy with horrifying precision. Patricia would manufacture performance issues through fabricated client complaints and strategic exclusion from key projects. Tommy would gradually claim credit for campaign elements while positioning himself as indispensable to client relationships. Together, they would build a case for termination that appeared justified while protecting the company from wrongful termination claims. The financial motivation was explicit and shocking. Tommy had been promised my salary plus a $25,000 bonus if he successfully claimed credit for the Megacorp campaign. Patricia would receive promotion to Vice President of Human Resources for successfully handling difficult personnel situations that could have damaged company reputation and client relationships. More emails revealed the calculated nature of their psychological warfare. Patricia's performance review concerns were completely fabricated based on fictional client complaints that existed only in her imagination. The computer access limitations, parking reassignment, and supply shortages were coordinated harassment designed to create documentation of my declining job performance and lack of engagement with company culture. Sarah Chen's role as unwilling spy was confirmed in writing. Patricia had threatened Sarah's job security unless she monitored my activities and reported potential signs of disloyalty. The emails showed Sarah's reluctance to participate, but also her fear of becoming the next target if she refused to cooperate. The most devastating discovery was evidence of intellectual property theft on a scale I had not imagined. Patricia had been secretly selling my strategic innovations to competing agencies while planning to destroy my reputation to prevent exposure. My campaign framework's client research methodologies and proprietary approaches were being marketed to other companies as consulting services that generated significant revenue for Patricia personally. Bradley Thornton appeared completely unaware of the conspiracy, with emails referring to him as someone who believes whatever we tell him and won't question our recommendations as long as the numbers look good. They had manipulated his trust in their judgment to gain approval for actions that he would never have supported if he understood their true motives. The email chain included detailed timelines for my destruction. They had already written my termination letter, planning to fire me Monday morning for gross misconduct related to fictional client conflicts and unauthorized communication with competitors. The termination would be accompanied by a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from discussing my experience or challenging their version of events. Legal violations were documented throughout their correspondence. References to me as overly emotional and not leadership material provided clear evidence of gender discrimination. Sharing my private client strategies with external parties violated confidentiality agreements and potentially constituted corporate espionage. Falsifying performance reviews and fabricating client complaints represented fraud that could result in criminal charges. The final email in the chain was sent just hours before the awards ceremony, confirming their plan to publicly humiliate me as the final step in destroying my professional reputation. Tommy's speech characterizing me as an administrative assistant was specifically designed to prevent future employment opportunities while protecting their theft of intellectual property. But the most shocking revelation came in the final message thread, where Patricia discussed correspondence with an external headhunter named Michael Stevens. Instead of Jackie being recruited away from Pinnacle, Patricia had been actively shopping my strategic innovations to competing agencies while planning to destroy my reputation to prevent me from exposing the theft. Stevens confirmed that Hartley and Associates is willing to pay $300,000 for Jackie's community engagement framework, Patricia wrote. We need to move quickly on termination before she realizes her work is being sold. Once she's gone and discredited, we can claim the methodologies were developed by our team without her involvement. The emails revealed a sophisticated criminal enterprise disguised as corporate personnel management. They were not just stealing credit for my work, they were literally selling my intellectual property to competitors while systematically destroying my ability to prove ownership or seek legal recourse. Reading the complete scope of their conspiracy, I felt a strange combination of vindication and fury. My paranoia had been completely justified. They were orchestrating a coordinated attack on my career that was far more extensive and malicious than I had imagined. But I also felt a surge of power because their own words provided irrefutable evidence of criminal behavior that could destroy their careers and potentially result in criminal charges. The accidental forwarding of these emails was either the luckiest break of my professional life or divine intervention on behalf of justice. Either way, I now possessed the smoking gun that could expose their entire operation and restore my reputation while ensuring they faced serious consequences for their actions. Saturday morning arrived with Seattle's typical October drizzle, but I felt more energized and focused than I had in months. The devastating email evidence had transformed my situation from hopeless victim to strategic prosecutor. I spent the weekend converting my home office into a war room, organizing evidence with the methodical precision of a federal investigator preparing for trial. My kitchen table became command central, covered with printed emails, original campaign documents, client correspondence, and legal research materials. I created timeline charts showing the progression of their conspiracy evidence matrices, linking specific claims to supporting documentation and communication logs, proving my authorship of stolen work. The original Megacorp campaign materials were particularly compelling. Time-stamped emails showed my initial strategic concepts, client research methodologies, and creative frameworks developed months before Tommy joined the company. Draft presentations contained my handwritten notes and revision comments that established clear intellectual ownership. Client correspondence specifically praised my innovative approaches and requested my continued involvement in campaign development. I had inadvertently created a paper trail that was impossible to fabricate or dispute. Every element of the Community Connect campaign could be traced back to my original thinking, contradicting Tommy's claims of authorship and exposing the systematic theft of intellectual property. Monday morning, I contacted employment attorney David Walsh, whose firm specialized in wrongful termination and workplace discrimination cases. David's office was located in a prestigious downtown Seattle building, and his reputation for aggressive advocacy on behalf of wronged employees was legendary among my professional network. During our initial consultation, David reviewed my evidence with the focused attention of a prosecutor examining smoking gun documentation. His expression grew increasingly serious as he read through Patricia's emails and examined the scope of their conspiracy. "Jackie, this is one of the most well-documented cases of workplace fraud and discrimination I've encountered," David said, setting down the email printouts. "You have multiple viable legal claims: wrongful termination, defamation, intellectual property theft, gender discrimination, and potentially criminal fraud charges." His assessment was both validating and strategic. The evidence was strong enough to support criminal charges against Patricia and Tommy, while also providing grounds for significant civil damages. More importantly, the documentation was sufficient to expose their crimes publicly without risking defamation claims from their legal team. "What are my options for immediate action?" I asked. David's smile was predatory. "We can file charges, pursue civil litigation, or leverage the evidence to negotiate favorable resolution. But first, I recommend contacting your clients directly to establish the record before they can fabricate alternative explanations." His suggestion was brilliant. Megacorp's executives had worked with me extensively and could confirm my role in campaign development, contradicting Tommy's public claims about my limited involvement. Their testimony would provide independent validation of my contributions while exposing the lies told at the awards ceremony. I called Rebecca Martinez at Megacorp Monday afternoon, reaching her during a convenient break between meetings. Rebecca's warm greeting suggested she was unaware of the drama surrounding the awards ceremony and my exclusion from company recognition. "Jackie, I was just thinking about you. We loved Tommy's presentation Friday night, but we were surprised you weren't there to receive recognition too. James and I specifically requested that you be involved in our campaign expansion discussions." Her words were like a gift from heaven. Megacorp's senior executives had expected my presence at the awards ceremony and specifically wanted me involved in future campaign development. Tommy's claims about being the primary client contact were contradicted by the clients themselves. Rebecca, there have been some internal changes at Pinnacle that I need to discuss with you. Can we schedule a meeting to review the campaign development process and future planning? We arranged to meet Wednesday afternoon at Megacorp's headquarters, giving me time to prepare a comprehensive presentation about my role in their campaign success. Rebecca's enthusiasm for continued collaboration provided leverage I could use to expose Tommy's misrepresentations and restore my professional standing. Meanwhile, I began reaching out to my broader industry network, carefully gauging reactions to the awards ceremony and testing the effectiveness of their reputation destruction campaign. The responses were revealing and encouraging. Jennifer Walsh from Creative Solutions Agency contacted me Tuesday morning with concerns about rumors circulating in the marketing community. "Jackie, I heard some strange things about your situation at Pinnacle. People are saying you were terminated for trying to steal client information, but that doesn't sound like you at all." Patricia's campaign to blacklist me from the industry was already underway, but the accusations were so inconsistent with my professional reputation that colleagues were questioning their validity. Industry veterans who had worked with me for years found the claims implausible, creating an opportunity to present evidence and restore my standing. "Jennifer, I'm dealing with a complex situation involving workplace discrimination and intellectual property theft. I can't discuss details yet, but I expect the truth to come out soon through legal channels." Her response was immediate and supportive. "If you need character references or professional recommendations, count me in. I've seen your work firsthand, and anyone claiming you would steal intellectual property is lying." Similar conversations with other industry contacts revealed that Patricia's blacklisting campaign was meeting resistance from people who knew my character and professional capabilities. While some believed the initial rumors, many were willing to listen to alternative explanations backed by evidence. By Wednesday morning, I had assembled a comprehensive counter-strategy that would simultaneously expose their crimes, restore my professional reputation, and potentially result in criminal charges against the conspirators. The plan required precise timing and strategic communication to maximize impact while minimizing legal risk. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. I would request a meeting with Bradley Thornton to clarify my role in the Megacorp campaign and address concerns about my professional conduct. The meeting would be positioned as an opportunity for me to respond to performance issues and demonstrate my commitment to company success. During the meeting, I would systematically present evidence of my campaign authorship, client relationship management, and strategic innovation. The documentation would be impossible to dispute and would directly contradict every element of Tommy and Patricia's fabricated narrative. But the real masterstroke would be the email evidence. Patricia's own words describing their conspiracy would be presented as supporting documentation for my concerns about workplace harassment and discrimination. Their criminal admissions would be entered into the company record as part of my formal complaint, creating legal liability that could not be ignored or covered up. Bradley's reaction would determine the next phase of my strategy. If he demonstrated genuine shock and immediate action to address their crimes, I might consider internal resolution. If he attempted to cover up their actions or retaliate against me for exposing them, I would immediately file criminal charges and pursue aggressive civil litigation. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning, giving me time to prepare final documentation and coordinate with David Walsh about immediate legal action if necessary. The timing was perfect. Exactly 1 week after my public humiliation at the awards ceremony, I would expose the entire conspiracy and restore justice to the situation. Wednesday evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the final elements of my evidence package. The irony was profound. Their own arrogance and detailed documentation had provided me with the weapons necessary to destroy their careers while restoring my professional reputation. Justice would be served through their own words and actions, creating a poetic resolution to their systematic attempt to destroy my life. Thursday morning arrived with unusual clarity, as if Seattle's notorious overcast sky had temporarily parted to allow sunshine for my moment of vindication. I arrived at Pinnacle's offices early, carrying a leather briefcase containing organized evidence that would either restore my career or destroy theirs completely. Rather than requesting a private meeting with Bradley that could be controlled or manipulated, I decided on a more public approach that would create transparency and accountability. I crafted a comprehensive email to company leadership, megacorp executives, and key industry contacts that systematically presented evidence while maintaining professional tone throughout. The email subject line was deliberately understated: Request for clarification, megacorp campaign attribution and employment status. The neutral language disguised the explosive content while ensuring recipients would open and read the complete message. I began with a professional summary of my employment history and role in developing the Community Connect campaign, providing context for readers who might not understand the significance of upcoming revelations. The opening paragraphs established my credentials and track record, while setting the stage for more damaging information. The body of the email systematically presented evidence of intellectual property theft, workplace discrimination, and conspiracy to defraud the company. I included original time-stamped campaign proposals, client correspondence praising my specific contributions, and strategic frameworks that proved my authorship of supposedly collaborative work. Patricia's accidentally forwarded emails were presented as concerning communications that came to my attention, without explaining how I had obtained them. The language was carefully neutral, allowing their own words to condemn them without editorial commentary from me. The email concluded with a professional request for investigation and resolution, emphasizing my desire to continue contributing to company success while ensuring appropriate credit for intellectual property and fair treatment under employment policies. I sent the email at exactly 9 a.m. Thursday morning, timing the delivery to coincide with the start of business hours when recipients would be checking morning messages. The recipient list was carefully curated to include everyone who needed to understand the situation. Bradley Thornton Company board members, megacorp executives, Rebecca and James Martinez, employment attorney David Walsh, and selected industry colleagues who could serve as witnesses to the revelations. The response was immediate and explosive. Within 5 minutes of sending the email, my phone began ringing continuously with calls from shocked recipients who could not believe the scope of the conspiracy or the damning nature of the evidence. Bradley Thornton called first, his voice shaking with what sounded like genuine panic and confusion. "Jackie, I just read your email and I'm horrified by these allegations. Can you come to my office immediately so we can discuss this situation?" His tone suggested complete ignorance of Patricia and Tommy's schemes, confirming what their emails had indicated about manipulating his trust and decision-making. Bradley appeared to be an unwitting accomplice who genuinely believed their fabricated explanations for my declining performance and problematic behavior. Rebecca Martinez from Megacorp called within minutes of Bradley, her voice combining shock with professional concern. "Jackie, we had no idea about any of this workplace drama. Your email raises serious questions about the integrity of our campaign development and the people we've been working with. We need to meet immediately to discuss this situation." Her call was particularly significant because it confirmed Megacorp's complete ignorance of the internal conspiracy while validating my central role in their campaign success. Their perspective as outside clients provided independent verification that contradicted every element of Tommy and Patricia's narrative. Industry colleagues began calling with expressions of support and outrage about the treatment I had experienced. Jennifer Walsh from Creative Solutions was among the first to respond. "Jackie, this explains everything about those weird rumors floating around. I'm forwarding your email to everyone I know because this kind of workplace fraud affects our entire industry." The professional community was rallying around me with unexpected speed and enthusiasm. Many colleagues had experienced similar workplace betrayals or intellectual property theft, making my situation resonate personally while inspiring them to support justice and accountability. Meanwhile, emergency damage control was clearly underway within Pinnacle's executive offices. Through my office window, I could see Patricia and Tommy in heated conversation with Bradley, their animated gestures and expressions suggesting desperate attempts to explain away the evidence or create alternative narratives. But their panic was leading to contradictory stories that further incriminated them. Tommy claimed he had been protecting the company from my supposed disloyalty, while Patricia insisted their actions were standard human resources procedures for managing difficult employees. Neither explanation addressed the intellectual property theft or the systematic campaign to destroy my reputation through fabricated accusations. Within 2 hours of sending my email, David Walsh called with updates from his legal contacts about potential criminal charges. "Jackie, I've been in touch with the prosecutor's office about fraud charges. The evidence you've provided is sufficient to support criminal prosecution for conspiracy theft of intellectual property and fraud. They want to meet with you this afternoon to discuss filing charges." The possibility of criminal prosecution elevated the situation beyond workplace disputes into serious legal consequences that could result in prison sentences for the perpetrators. Patricia and Tommy's conspiracy was not just employment discrimination or corporate politics. It was criminal fraud that violated state and federal laws. Megacorp's executives demanded an immediate meeting with company leadership to address concerns about campaign integrity and future business relationships. Rebecca Martinez made it clear that continued partnership would depend on Pinnacle's response to the evidence and treatment of the situation. "We contracted with Pinnacle specifically because of Jackie's innovative approach and strategic expertise," Rebecca told Bradley during a conference call that afternoon. "If she's been systematically excluded and her work stolen, we need to reconsider our entire business relationship." The threat was unmistakable. Megacorp would terminate their $2.8 million contract unless Pinnacle addressed the fraud and restored appropriate recognition for my contributions. Their ultimatum provided powerful leverage that made my vindication financially necessary for company survival. By late afternoon, the story had reached industry trade publications through colleagues who forwarded my email to marketing journalists. Marketing Weekly's editor called me directly to request an interview about the workplace fraud case, describing it as a significant story that would resonate throughout the professional community. "Jackie, this case highlights systemic problems in our industry about intellectual property protection and workplace discrimination. We want to feature your story as part of our ongoing coverage of professional ethics and employee rights." The prospect of industry-wide publicity was both exciting and terrifying. Public vindication would restore my professional reputation while exposing the criminals who had tried to destroy my career. But it would also make the situation irreversible, eliminating any possibility of quiet internal resolution. Tommy and Patricia's careers were effectively over. No marketing agency would hire executives who had been exposed for intellectual property theft and systematic fraud. Their professional reputations were destroyed by their own documented words, creating consequences far beyond simple employment termination. The email that changed everything was not just evidence of their crimes. It was a declaration of war that mobilized an entire professional community around principles of justice and accountability. My decision to expose their conspiracy publicly, rather than pursuing quiet internal resolution, had transformed a personal workplace dispute into an industry-wide examination of professional ethics and employee protection. The aftermath of my explosive email unfolded with the swift precision of dominoes falling in carefully arranged patterns. Within 72 hours, the entire leadership structure at Pinnacle Marketing had been transformed. Careers had been destroyed, and my professional vindication was complete, beyond anything I could have imagined. Patricia Wells was terminated Friday morning for gross misconduct, fraud, and violation of fiduciary duty. Her termination letter, which I obtained through David Walsh's legal discovery process, cited her conspiracy to steal intellectual property, fabrication of employee performance issues, and personal enrichment through sale of confidential company strategies to competitors. The criminal investigation revealed that Patricia's scheme extended far beyond my situation. She had been systematically stealing innovative approaches from multiple employees and selling them to competing agencies for personal profit. Her leather portfolio, which I had always seen as a professional accessory, actually contained detailed intelligence about employee projects and client strategies that she marketed to external buyers. Federal prosecutors filed charges, including conspiracy to commit fraud, theft of intellectual property, and violation of computer fraud statutes. Patricia's sophisticated documentation of her crimes, which she had maintained for tax purposes related to her illegal income, provided investigators with comprehensive evidence of criminal behavior spanning 3 years. Tommy Rodriguez faced both termination and criminal charges for his role in the conspiracy. His confident charm and smooth-talking ability proved useless when confronted with written evidence of his systematic theft and fraud. The junior analyst who had positioned himself as a strategic innovator was revealed as nothing more than an opportunistic criminal who had built his career on stolen work. Bradley Thornton's response demonstrated genuine leadership and moral courage that validated my decision to expose the conspiracy through company channels rather than immediately pursuing external legal action. His shock at learning the truth was authentic, and his immediate steps to address the situation exceeded my expectations for corporate accountability. Jackie, I owe you a profound apology for allowing this situation to develop, and for being manipulated into believing their fabricated narrative about your performance, Bradley said during our private meeting Monday morning. I want to offer you Patricia's position as Vice President of Strategy with a 40% salary increase, public acknowledgement of your contributions, and contractual protections to ensure this never happens again. His offer was generous and meaningful, representing not just financial compensation, but genuine recognition of my value to the company. The vice president title would restore my professional standing while providing platform to implement systemic changes that would protect other employees from similar treatment. Megacorp's executives were equally supportive and vindicated in their original assessment of my strategic capabilities. Rebecca Martinez called personally to express their continued confidence in our business relationship and their desire to expand campaign initiatives under my direct leadership. Jackie, we always knew you were the creative force behind our campaign success. We want to double our marketing investment and have you lead strategic development for our entire product portfolio, Rebecca announced during our Wednesday meeting. Their expanded contract worth $5.6 million annually made Pinnacle the largest marketing agency in Seattle, while establishing me as one of the most successful campaign strategists in the Pacific Northwest. The client validation provided independent confirmation of my professional excellence that transcended internal company politics. Industry recognition followed quickly through Marketing Weekly's comprehensive feature article about my case. The story, titled "Fighting Back How One Strategist Exposed Systematic Workplace Fraud," positioned me as a heroic whistleblower who had courageously challenged corporate corruption at significant personal risk. The article generated speaking invitations from professional associations, conference organizers, and business schools interested in my perspective on workplace ethics, intellectual property protection, and strategies for combating discrimination. My experience became a case study in professional courage that inspired similar revelations throughout the marketing industry. 6 months later, I was leading Pinnacle's most successful quarter in company history, having implemented systematic changes that prevented intellectual property theft while fostering genuine collaborative innovation. The toxic culture that had enabled Patricia and Tommy's conspiracy was replaced by transparent communication, documented project attribution, and clear consequences for unethical behavior. Patricia's legal consequences were severe and permanent. She pled guilty to multiple felony charges and received a 2-year prison sentence plus restitution payments to affected employees and companies. Her professional licenses were revoked, and her conviction made future employment in marketing or human resources impossible. Tommy faced similar criminal consequences, but also struggled with complete industry blacklisting. Word of his fraudulent behavior spread throughout Seattle's tight-knit marketing community, making him unemployable at any reputable agency. He eventually left marketing entirely, finding work in an unrelated field where his reputation for dishonesty was unknown. The ripple effects of exposing their conspiracy extended far beyond Pinnacle marketing. Other employees came forward with similar experiences of credit theft, harassment, and systematic exclusion from recognition they deserved. My courage in challenging powerful executives inspired a broader movement toward workplace accountability and protection of intellectual property rights. Sarah Chen, who had been coerced into monitoring my activities, became one of my strongest supporters and closest friends. Her guilt about participating in the surveillance campaign motivated her to become an advocate for employee rights and ethical business practices. Together, we developed training programs that help workers recognize and resist workplace manipulation. The most profound transformation was personal rather than professional. Fighting back against systematic injustice taught me that my worth as a person and professional was not determined by others' validation or recognition. The experience revealed inner strength and courage that I had not known existed, while proving that truth and persistence could overcome even sophisticated criminal conspiracies. My new role as Vice President of Strategy provided platform to mentor other women facing workplace discrimination while implementing policies that protected intellectual property and ensured appropriate recognition for innovative work. The position was not just a job title, but a responsibility to create positive change for future employees who might face similar challenges. 18 months after the awards ceremony that began this nightmare, I stood on the same stage at the Grand Hyatt Seattle receiving the Marketing Executive of the Year award from the Seattle Business Association. The ballroom was packed with the same industry leaders who had witnessed my humiliation, but now they applauded genuine recognition of my achievements and leadership. Bradley Thornton introduced me as the strategic visionary who transformed our company culture while demonstrating extraordinary courage in exposing workplace fraud and protecting intellectual property rights. His words were meaningful because they acknowledged both my professional capabilities and my moral courage in challenging systematic injustice. During my acceptance speech, I shared the lessons learned from my experience while encouraging others to stand up for their rights and protect their intellectual property. The standing ovation that followed was not just recognition of my achievements, but validation of the principles I had fought to defend. The story that began with devastating betrayal and systematic destruction of my professional reputation ended with complete vindication, career advancement beyond my original goals, and the satisfaction of knowing that justice had been served through legal consequences for the perpetrators. Most importantly, my experience proved that fighting back against workplace injustice, even when the odds seem impossible, can create positive change that extends far beyond personal vindication. Speaking truth to power requires courage, but the rewards include not just personal satisfaction, but meaningful protection for others who might face similar challenges. 6 months later, as I reviewed quarterly performance reports showing record-breaking success across all campaign initiatives, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed since that night when I was banned from the awards ceremony. The journey from victim to victor required confronting powerful enemies with nothing but evidence and determination, but the transformation was worth every moment of fear and uncertainty. Standing in my corner office overlooking Seattle's skyline, I realized that my experience had taught me the most valuable lesson of my career. Authentic success comes from fighting for what is right, protecting intellectual property and professional integrity, and never allowing others to diminish your worth through lies and manipulation. The email that changed everything was not just evidence of their crimes. It was a declaration that I would not be silently destroyed by people who valued personal gain over professional integrity. Sometimes the most important battles we fight are not for ourselves alone, but for the principles that protect everyone who comes after us. Have you ever experienced workplace injustice or had someone try to take credit for your hard work? How did you handle it, and what advice would you give to others facing similar challenges? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more content about overcoming workplace challenges and fighting for professional justice. Share this story with anyone who might be facing similar situations. Sometimes knowing that others have successfully fought back provides the courage we need to stand up for ourselves. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your voice and your work matter more than those who try to silence or steal from you.